As we say hello and welcome to College Football Live, Joe Tessitore, Desmond Howard, and Urban Meyer, our recent colleague, who, Urban, if you stick around long enough and that mic stays attached, you know, they may ask you to actually do some work. So you may want to get on that plane back to Columbus before they figure things out here.
Well, I see Mark Gross and the boys have already put me to work today.
Yeah, well, trust me, they're very good at doing that, Urban. Year 2 at Ohio State, time of the year when I know a guy like you starts to get anxious to get out there and coach again. You get done with all this kind of stuff, you want to get out there.
Well, Sunday's the day. It's an exciting time in Columbus. High expectations, but that's part of the deal at Ohio State. And I can speak on behalf of our staff. Enough's enough. Let's go coach.
Yeah, what do you say we get rid of the news of the day, and then you guys can talk some ball? Unnecessary distractions, obviously, in recent weeks. Last night, Urban announcing the 3-game suspension of running back Carlos Hyde. Local police closed the case in which Hyde was a person of interest in an alleged assault. No charges. Hyde rushed for just short of 1,000 yards last year for the undefeated Buckeyes. Urban, how did you arrive at the decision to discipline Hyde?
Well, there was a videotape out there. I watched it like most of America, and I asked for help. I asked the police, and they made the comment to me that if that's an ordinary person on the street, there's no charges. It just moves on. However, we teach our players to walk away from that situation. So I was very disappointed that he did not walk away, and our job is to set a standard. So he'll miss at least the first 3 games.
And Des, there is talent at running back when it comes to the Buckeyes here. Rod Smith and Jordan Hall, Briante Dunn, and the freshman coming.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know, even without Carlos Hyde, you have a stable of running backs. Can you tell us about each player and what he brings to the offense?
Well, we do. You know, a year ago I was telling you guys that we other than Jordan Hall a year ago, there was no one I had confidence in to hand him the ball, throw him the ball, ever. Our skill positions are much better. They're much more developed, and we recruited well. So at running back, you got Rod Smith, who's a returning player, had some good games last year. You got Briante Dunn, who's also been in the program. This will be his 2nd year. Warren Ball's a redshirt freshman. Then these 2 true freshmen, Ezekiel Elliott and Dontre Wilson, are as talented. You know, I've not seen them yet. We start Sunday, but I'm excited. They're going to help us.
Any update on the Bradley Roby situation, All-American candidate at quarterback who also had off-the-field news recently?
Well, there's also conflicting stories there, and so I'm waiting to gather information. I've heard the story, and my job is to operate under facts, not rumors or whatever. So I'm just going to wait to hear the facts and make a decision.
Year 2, your previous stops in year 2, you've had great success in 9 points per game boost with your teams: Bowling Green, Utah, Florida. Obviously big expectations, but improving on 12-0. We were together at the end of last year. I did your Wisconsin game, and I got the sense that, yes, 12-0, but you knew there was a big gap between where you were and what greatness was.
Well, 29 practices will be taking place starting Sunday until the first game. After that, you have about 24 the rest of the year. So everything will be predicated on how we do in training camp. The health of our players, development of the young guys. The difference between college football and the NFL is training camp. NFL, it's not the same. In college, you're trying to develop a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, and just put together, you know, whatever your mantra of your team is. And so training camp, for you to ask me right now, I think we'll be much better on offense. If you get a few injuries, then we're going to be right back to where we were. These next 3 weeks are, I mean, it's especially, I can't speak for pro football. In college football, these next 3 weeks are going to make or break every team in America.
After going undefeated, Coach, you know, coming into this season, what's your @1 concern about this team going to the 2013 season?
Starting the season last year, Game 3, if Joe would ask me, he said, "How are you guys going to be?" I said, "We'll be 7-5 at best. We're not very good." And then I underestimated the incredible leadership we had. John Simon, Zach Bourne, Sabino, Goebel, the guys that became our captains, you know, because I didn't know them. I didn't recruit them. I knew who they were. And when things got really hard is when you need leadership. It got real. We were not a good team. Okay. And then 2 overtime wins and some other close games. And by the end of the year, that same team that I thought would be 7-5, I thought could compete with anybody in America in Week 12. So why? It was because of incredible leadership. No more evaluating by players. Players need to play. They don't need to evaluate. And they were playing.
How's Braxton Miller a better leader right now than he was 12 months ago?
I love Braxton Miller. I mean, he's the most humble, great player I've ever been around. You know, you don't hear him. He's not comfortable to do things, and he just wants to get better. He realizes the best thing about Braxton, you talk to him, and you know, it's not when he's yelling and screaming. It says, "Now this is what you need to do better, and here's why." He gets it, so he's getting better. And someone asked me a question about 15 minutes ago, what are you most anxious about? I want to see number 5 jog on that field on Sunday and see the improvement, because we all know if he gets better, then it's going to be something to watch.
Yeah, he's an exceptional talent. There's no doubt about that. I watched him in some games. I started to wince because he was taking such a pounding. What have you done during the offseason? Have you talked to Coach Herman to try to make sure that this player doesn't take the pounding or the unnecessary hits that he took a lot last season?
Right. Well, we have to, there was a time last year on the headsets when I made the decision the only person can touch the ball is Braxton.
Okay.
We have to. Remember now, our job is still to win games,
yeah.
and he was by far our best player. Philly Brown's improved his game. You have two very good tight ends in Nick Vannett and Hireman. You
good
have
targets
Devin
downfield. I mean, you look at those guys physically, Urban. Big targets, fluid athletes downfield.
Excellent guys. I mean, we're very fortunate. I've never had two tight ends like that. So there's other guys. The first thing to do is improve the people around him, and second of all, you teach your quarterback. A lot of those hits he was taking because it was either misread or he was just trying to make his own plays.
Right.
And so we're going to have to distribute the ball, and he's got to be more disciplined in where he's going to go with the ball.
You mentioned his disposition earlier of being a humble and modest guy. What's he like in the locker room?
I think he's a young player that the players really like to be around. He's not overbearing. He's quiet. Maybe that's when he's around me, but I get the feeling that's the way he is around the players. They all love him to death because they know he's not a arrogant guy that's trying to seek glory for himself. He's a team player all the way.
Yeah, we've talked about his maturity a little bit. What about some physical improvements with him?
Yeah, it's the strength. I'll joke around with him because he's an extremely talented guy. But now he even looks at me and I'll ask him, "Hey, are you stronger?" And he just gives me that look like, "Coach, it's crazy how strong I am now." Because we have an excellent strength program in our strength staff, and he's bought in completely.
Go ahead, Des.
No, I saw you earlier doing an interview on one of the shows that we have on ESPN. I think it was with Sam Ponder, and she said that Braxton wanted to win the Heisman. And you said you didn't know that he wanted to win the Heisman. Obviously, you coached at Florida with Tim Tebow. How do you help temper that when a player who's that electrifying wants to win that individual award, but you know what all comes with that, especially with those expectations going into the season like Braxton's going into?
Well, I never really got it because Braxton Miller, to even mention the word Heisman a year ago, this time they just came off Ohio State lost 7 games. Braxton was thrust into a role that he didn't play very well, but the offense didn't play very well for a lot of reasons. Right. And here's a kid that came out and became Big Ten Player of the Year, and they started talking. I think he finished 5th in the Heisman or something like that. So that is something that, as much as I really don't want to talk about it, I have to. Because he's hearing it from other places. So let's have that talk. Is that a goal? Tell me your goals. Heisman was one of his goals. I've been fortunate to coach a bunch of candidates and a guy that won it. And so my job is to keep him focused on the next day. At the appropriate time, I told him if there's discussion to be, we'll have that discussion. As of right now, you need to get better. The best football player in America wins a Heisman. That's the best way to become the Heisman winner, is become the best football player.
Yeah, you mentioned,
I know, you're right.
Yeah. Said the former Heisman winner. You mentioned Simon earlier. Urban, I got the sense last year Simon was a guy that you leaned on a bit to be that team leader, that player who would stand up in a time where you needed somebody to stand up. On the other side of the ball, guys we should be watching for this year, who are they? Well,
in offense, they're there. They were there last year. Our center, Corey Lindsley, Norwell, and Muhort are three of our offense linemen are grown men that are going to manage the team. On defense, it's a little bit iffy. We lost some very good leaders. And let me tell you this, Joe, that as much respect as I had for leadership in a program, it's off the charts now. There's no doubt in my mind that's how to win. When you see teams fail, it's not because of poor coaching, poor players. It's because there's something wrong with the machine. Because that leadership was as good as I've ever seen last year. Christian Bryant, Ryan Shazier are 2 guys I'm really counting on to step up and be that voice. Because the coaches are on the sideline during that game. Right. And overtime, not overtime, players win games. Coaches don't win games.
Good to visit with you, as always.
Joe.
Yeah.
Good seeing you, Coach.
Don't hang out too much here, though. I'm telling you, get that whistle around the neck. Get back there now.
I'm ready to go. The car's started. We're ready to go.
Give him to the airport, Des.
No, that's right.
Urban Meyer with us here on College Football Live. Still to come, we continue our conversation on the Big Ten, including